Joining us now is Pat the Designer from Locked On Bulls. You can follow on Twitter at Pat the Designer, also host of Locked On NBA. Now, Pat, where I want to start with is, should Bulls fans be confident or worried that Chicago didn't really make any major moves this offseason?
I mean, here's the thing, right? I have to give credit to Hayes. I think I said this on Locked On NBA last week, and I'll give credit to him here. There's a lot to be said about not making moves if you were a bad basketball team last season. But like Hayes said, a lot of teams in the East made moves this year, but they didn't make moves that make them better than a healthy Bulls team. And I think that's the part that you really have to look at, right, when you're talking about where this team is heading. They were one of the best teams in the NBA last year without having a healthy team, without Zach Lavine being 100%, without Lonzo Ball for most of that year, right? And so you come into this season feeling like if you're 100% healthy, now we're not starting off the season great, but if you're at a minimum healthier, this team can still be one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, even with all the adjustments that have been made.
Yeah, I want to get into that a little bit as far as, how the Bulls maybe stack up to some of the other Eastern Conference teams that have made additions to their roster. But on that point, right, what is the latest on Lonzo Ball, the knee rehab? Will he be available at the start of the season? And again, if not, how much does that impact the Bulls, especially in the early going?
So latest that we got from Ramona Shelburne is that he won't be available for training camp. Probably is going to miss the beginning of the season, right? And I know a lot of Bulls fans, a lot of people around the NBA look at that as that's tough for the Bulls. They're going to start off struggling. They're going to have these tough times. Like I don't need Lonzo Ball at the beginning of the season. When I need him is in the playoffs. When I need him is going into the end of the season. Preferably before. I'd like to have him at the beginning of the season, right? But like if Lonzo Ball comes back at game 20 and he's playing 100% healthy and he's ready to go, we don't care as long as the Bulls stay afloat. And the Bulls showed last season they can stay afloat through a myriad of injuries through a lot of these really good teams in the NBA. Now, the one thing that I will say that helps me feel a lot better about that is the fact that we got a young guy like Ayo Dosunmu on this team, right, who came out last season, was one of not just the best defenders among rookies, but was one of the best defenders in the NBA all up until he hit that what one can only call a rookie wall, because it was like he looks exhausted every night now. So I think that, right, like I look at, okay, he was one of the best defenders in the NBA. In college, he was more of a scorer. I hope his scoring takes a bit of a step there. I don't feel like it's the end of the world if the Bulls start the season with Ayo Dosunmu as their starting point guard. And so for me, right, like I think it's not Lonzo Ball's done for the year. We're going to lose another year of Lonzo. He's going to be out. He's going to be injured, blah, blah, blah. I think it's okay if he starts this season and he's not 100% ready to go. We've made provisions for that. We brought in Goran Dragic. We have Ayo Dosunmu. We have Alex Caruso on this team. Those are the things to me that I look at where I say I've still got some really good players at that point guard position. It's just a little bit more on the bench.
This Bulls team at times to me Pat kind of feels to me like, the whole is greater than the sum of their parts at times, right? You have so many different pieces, so many different talented pieces, but then, even you get them all together just collectively, they're kind of able to elevate and, as you already alluded to, right, kind of battling so many different injuries and stuff that they dealt with last season and yet still finding ways to be successful. But at the heart of all of that, and was kind of surprising, right? DeMar DeRozan, maybe kind of like a bit of a career renaissance, right? Even at times, like in discussions for the MVP debate, like at one point last season, which was kind of crazy. What are you hoping to see out of him this year? Are there any adjustments that you want to see out of him? How he works with teammates? Do you think he's capable of that same level of play again?
I think DeMar is capable of it, right? Because it's a methodical game with him, right? Like it's all about rhythm. It's all about being in rhythm. It's all about playing his game, the simplicity of it, right? And getting to his spots and knocking them down the same shots he's knocked down his entire career. I'm probably one of the few Bulls fans to say this, though. I want to see DeMar DeRozan do less. Sounds crazy, right? Like he's putting up 30 plus, he's hitting game winners, he's going out there, but it was because he had to. There was a lot of Bulls fans that looked at last season and fans around the NBA and said DeMar DeRozan is the only piece you got. And that was kind of a factual statement, because when we find out after the season, right, trainers are saying that Zach Lavine was basically playing at 50% ever since he went down with the first knee injury, but he plays through it. You never had Lonzo Ball. Caruso was playing at 50%, but forced himself to come back, wasn't 100% ready to go. A lot of players dealing with injury. And so DeMar literally said, all right, well, let me just put on the offensive guru hat. I'm going to go out here and kill everybody, and we'll see what happens. It turned into a lot of wins, but I want to see DeMar do less this season because I want to see Zach Lavine take that step, right? Zach Lavine was somebody who was 27, 28 points a game 2 years ago. I want to see him take that step again and get back into that, especially with the new rules where you're talking about there is basically no take foul. If you're going to take it, it's two in the ball, or it's one shot in the ball. I mean, I think that's going to open up a lot of things going to the basket for Zach Lavine because people aren't just going to say, I'm just going to grab you and you're not going to get there. I think Zach Lavine could be somebody that's averaging 30 points a game. I want to see DeMar kind of take that offensive step the other direction because then that means, okay, Patrick Williams, who's major for the Bulls this season, is taking that step. That means Zach Lavine's moving in the right direction. Ayo Dosunmu's moving in the right direction. Maybe Lonzo's back right. And those are the pieces that I think need to take steps, right? The collective of the team, not just one guy being able to go out there and score.
I kind of remember this being a talking point last season, right? You know, is this Zach Lavine's team or is it DeMar DeRozan's team? It kind of feels like to me you like want this to be Zach Lavine's team, right?
I mean, here's the thing. At the end of the day, I don't care because basketball teams go through so many changes so quickly that it could be one guy's team one year and not one guy. Like last year, going into last season, we'd have said the Cleveland Cavaliers was Colin Sexton's team. Halfway through the season, we're looking at it, we're like, Darius Garland's a monster, and it's his team. And now we're talking about moving Colin Sexton, right? Donovan Mitchell comes over there. Now is it Donovan Mitchell's team or is it Darius Garland's team? Like, right? Like, so the narrative around whose team it is, unless you have one of those like major, like Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, even Kawhi, well, I mean, kind of Kawhi Leonard, even with Kawhi Leonard, it's like, are they better when PG's the number one or Kawhi's the number one? Like, I think the NBA changes so quickly. You have to focus more on not whose team it is, but do you have that leadership on the team that you can lean on that's been in those big moments and has been able to make those big plays? The Bulls do have that in DeMar DeRozan, and even a little bit in Goran Dragic now, bringing him in, right? Like Goran Dragic has been in the NBA Finals and was a major scorer in those NBA Finals. So, like, I think you have a couple of pieces that you can lean on, but also you want to see those younger guys take that next step. There is no team if Patrick Williams doesn't take that next step, if Zach Lavine doesn't take that next step. And whoever takes the biggest step, guess what? That's whose team it is.
There we go, right? We're just going to have a team player by committee, right? Just whoever, you know, if you're the best guy, you know, it's your team. Maybe we'll do team player night by night, right? You're the best player of the night. This is your team. Pat, you mentioned earlier, right, that the Bulls fans should be confident about this team, you know, being 100% healthy, not really worrying about some of the other teams in the East that have made improvements and stuff. And I know we got to get to the season. We got to see what it looks like because you can talk about a team on paper and then it's just could be a dumpster fire in actuality. But to me, it looks like, right, Philly got better. Cleveland added Donovan Mitchell. They're going to be better. Brooklyn on paper looks good if everybody can buy in, but that's, big if. Like,
you slander your coach to start the season.
Dude, bold face, like 72-point font if, like, if Brooklyn buys in. Atlanta got better with DeJounte Murray. Let's put it this way. What are the teams in the East that you can sit here with a straight face confidently say, yeah, those are the teams that are better than the Bulls right now, assuming the Bulls are healthy?
No, I think it's your easy ones, right? Like I still look at Milwaukee and I say they're 100% better, right? I still look at the Boston Celtics and I say they're better, right? Like they made the NBA Finals. I'm not going to say the Bulls got them. Like, you know what I mean? Like I look at those top teams and say that, but like you said, Philly got better. Maybe we got to see it, right? Like, is PJ Tucker what makes them better? Is bringing in Montrezl Harrell what makes them better, right? Like, I think there's a lot of better that sits on, okay, is James Harden going to be better? Because that's what puts them above it, right? Atlanta, got to show me. I think Atlanta, I like DeJounte Murray on Atlanta. Doesn't change the fact that that's a really small backcourt and there's not a lot of defense going on there outside of DeJounte Murray. I feel the same way kind of about what they did in Cleveland, right? And so for me, right, it's not to say that 100% I think the Bulls are going to dominate that team consistently. But what I think is that the Bulls, you look at your top teams in the Eastern Conference, and it's one word that Acme has said the entire offseason: continuity. The Bulls know how each other play together. Even through injury, right? They force themselves to play together majority at 70, 60%, right? Trying to get that continuity, trying to build up that rapport with each other. So they understand how each other play. They're already playing in the offseason together. when you look at those top teams, right? Milwaukee's been together for a while. I still put Miami as a top team in this Eastern Conference. They've been together for a while. They're not changing nothing. Cleveland's running it back pretty much with the same stuff, although they did add Donovan Mitchell, so I think that one might be the more interesting one. I think the continuity that the Bulls are coming into this season with plays a lot in where I put them. I still have them as one of the top teams in the East because when they were healthy, they were one of the top teams in the East.
Last thing for you here, Pat. As reported this last Friday by Shams Charania of The Athletic, the current framework for the proposed NBA in-season tournament, which could happen as early as the 2023-2024 season. Basically, you have cup games all throughout November, the early part of the season. 8 teams advance to a single elimination final in December. The other 22 keep going on with the regular season schedule. All the games are part of the 82-game schedule, with the exception that there's one extra game for each of the 2 final teams as part of the tournament. It includes some, I guess, to be determined prizes, I should say, for the 8 teams that advance to the single elimination stage. What are your thoughts on this in-season tournament? Because it feels like we've been talking about this, for a few years now, about the NBA kind of, adding something like this.
I've got 2 things on it, right? My first thing is it doesn't matter anymore because you made it a part of the regular season. So now it's games that guys are going to play in anyway. And you better come with some crazy incentives to make this worthwhile. Like, I'm talking about a playoff spot guaranteed if you win this tournament, right? To me, that's the only thing that does it, because in that situation, right, like take a team like the Chicago Bulls. If you have a guaranteed playoff spot, maybe you go into the end of that last season resting your players a little bit more, because at a minimum you're going to be a top 5 seed, even if it's 5. We've got some injury issues. We're going to rest. That's the only incentive to me that makes this worth it. Nothing is worth it. Like my prize for playing in this tournament is I have to play 83 games instead of 82. Like, leagues that do this, I know they do it a little bit in the WNBA, but even like that, they don't look at it as, oh, you did a great job here. It's like, oh, you won it. Nice. Let's go to the next game. The leagues that do this and it holds the most weight, there's some form of relegation involved in it. And I said this on Locked On Bulls today. Unless you're going to do something crazy like the G League has an opportunity to play in this thing and the worst team out of this tournament gets relegated, there is no point in doing this to me. Like, you're not changing anything. You're just adding stuff to what was already stuff that existed. It's like adding MVPs to the Eastern and Western Conference Finals last year. Like, it's going to be 10, 20, 30 years before somebody's talking about, Tatum was the first one to win Eastern Conference MVP for the Boston Celtics. Like, it doesn't matter to me, in my opinion.
Nah, look, we're gonna send Chicago down. We're gonna relegate them and bring the Windy City Bulls up. How's that?
I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, that's why I said, to me, this is a tournament that you hold with the worst teams in the league.
Well, we'll see what happens with the tournament stuff. It's still, at least, a little bit further down the line. But what happens with the Chicago Bulls this season? Are they a team fighting for home court advantage in the playoffs? Will DeMar DeRozan maybe take a bit of a step back offensively for the betterment of his teammates, the rest of the team on the floor for the Chicago Bulls? Of course, you're going to have us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On Bulls. Pat, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Always, man. Appreciate you for having me on.